Welcome all to the Zero Touch Network and Service Automation Forum. The intention of this forum is, first of all, to educate a little bit about the drivers behind the need to do something and what are the objectives that we are trying to achieve with this group in ETSI, with this industry specification group in ETSI. We will look a little bit into the scenarios, the business scenarios that drive the requirements for the work that we are doing, and that for also the architectural framework that we are specifying in order to satisfy these requirements. We will also look today into means of automation, how to automate different aspects of we are looking into different means how to automate different aspects, how to automate, for example, the decision-making, how to automate the assurance process, how to automate the deployment or whatever. And one of the goals is to ensure that the architecture enables all these automations means. And then after looking into the scenarios and requirements, architecture and means of automation, we will have a panel that will be moderated by Cliff, that stepped in to substitute Michael Howard that couldn't fly. And in the panel, before that, Cliff will provide some keynotes from their perspective, from the analyst perspective, about zero-touch network and service automation. And then we will have the panel with three operators, Verizon, Telefonica, Telstra, and we will have representatives also from the vendor side, Nokia, and then we will have also HP that also agreed to substitute Intel that couldn't fly because, again, of some health situation. And then I'll try to provide some wrap-up to summarize the learnings that we had today from the session. So again, let's take advantage of this intimate session and work together, discuss together, brainstorm together, that we'll be able to take it further. So I'll try to present again, I presented it yesterday, but I'll try to present it again, what we are doing in ETSI ISG ZSM. So it's my, okay. Okay, so what are the trends and what are the market drivers for that require this zero-touch network and service automation? So first of all, the whole world is automating. All major industries are rapidly digitizing and automating their businesses, relying on state-of-the-art cloud platforms and connectivity service. Cloud service providers, cloud providers, managed to demonstrate, and I would even say that they managed to demonstrate impressively, that digital services with high level of automation is both technically feasible and also extremely attractive to their customers. So they actually set up the new user expectations for digital services. Everyone is trying to follow that. So operators probably look into that and also want to reinvent themselves as digital service providers. They want to cut the cost and increase the speed of creating service, try it, deploy it, and assure it. And they start by moving into SDN and NFV, and what happened is that the transformation of the network into this programmable, software-driven, service-based architecture increased the complexity. So many entities, new entities that you need to manage and operate, to locate them in the right place, to scale them independently or whatever. So the complexity increased. Another driver for automation. And then they want to create new business models, taking advantage of new technologies and create value out of this. For example, by technology breakthrough like network slicing. And doing that, they want to provide a new broad of services, which are digital services, and they want to provide it in scale, and they require the TCO, and this imposes unprecedented operational agility and require higher cooperation between the different domains. So end-to-end network slicing is not a particular domain any longer, it across multiple domains, and this needs some cooperation, and work across the domains, and this requires more effort and more agility. So what we actually see is that the disruptive deployment of 5G triggered the need to network transformation and radical change in the way that the network services are managed and orchestrated. Full end-to-end network and service automation became a critical and urgent necessity. This is in order to provide, continuously provide digital services with service diversity, with network slicing at scale, and it required TCO. But what is happening in the industry? We heard today in the panel. So currently, if you look at the industry, and especially if you looked a year or 2 years ago, there's so many inconsistent management framework in the industries, many silos, lack of interoperability and alignment. There are many good things are done for RAN management, for transport, for open APIs, for digital storefront or whatever, but these are not consistent and not aligned together, and there is a need to create a new architectural framework that you can fit and stitch everything together in a consistent way. That's why a group of organizations, 14 ETSI members, decided to found a new organization in ETSI, a new ISG, Industry Specification Group. This included 5 Tier 1 operators, Deutsche Telekom, Docomo, Entity, Telefonica, and Sprint. All the major vendors, Ericsson, Huawei, Nokia, ZTE, NEC, and technology providers and IT providers like HP, Intel, IBM, Viavi. And I must say that there were additional supporting companies, but because they were not ETSI members, so they couldn't consider as ETSI founding members. I'm sorry for that. So the key objective was really to enable future operational processes and tasks to be executed automatically end-to-end across physical, virtualized network, end-to-end. And the goal of this group is really to accelerate the definition of the end-to-end service management architecture which span these environments. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. A lot of good work has been done in the industry and is being done either in specification groups, SDOs, and also open source activities. But what we try to do is to agree in the industry on a unique, a single end-to-end architectural framework where all the activities can nicely fit into in order to enable the end-to-end service automation. What we are seeking is to facilitate this collaboration with the relevant open source projects, standardization bodies, and fora, and this is one of the aims that we have, and I'll update about this in a few minutes. And we also want to enable interoperability. So we are working on modularity and interoperability, where we provide common foundation for the different and diversing open source projects to provide interoperable solution. So that means, thank you. So that means that we will be able to see one solution that can incorporate different implementations coming maybe from different open source projects and different implementation based on standard specification, and all of this will enable the industry to move to automation. So this is the current situation with the membership. So we have 65 members with 19 operators. And as I said before, it's key to have both open source and also SDOs and the specification groups, because these are complementing each other, and it's essential that we will work together to enable the end-to-end solution based on a single common architectural framework. So for example, if you look at Deutsche Telekom, which is a member of ZSM and a member of open source in ONAP, or Telefonica, which is a member in OSM, this is a good message to the industry. These are complementary efforts, and we need to ensure that we have good specification work. We need to ensure that we have good implementation based on these specifications, and to work in iterative mode, meaning that we can get feedback and input from the implementation work and consider that as we go with the specification work. So what is the situation of the work? So we started, the first meeting of ZSM happened early last year, 2018. We started with a approval of a few work items. The first one was the 001, which is a requirement based on business scenarios. And this document is already stable, and hopefully soon it will move into approval and publication. Fanny will present the work that we are doing there in a few minutes. The second document is 002. This is the architectural framework of zero-touch network and service management. We will hear a deep dive into the architecture in a few minutes also by Uwe, which is the rapporteur of this document and a key contributor to the document. And then we will see 003. This another document, we will not see it, but this is another document that we are working on. So this is the end-to-end management and orchestration of network slicing. This is a specification. What we are doing there, we also look at available efforts in the industry that can fit into the solution. So again, we are not going to redefine everything. Whatever is appropriate, we will leverage into the architecture and the solution, and we will work together closely with this organization to ensure that this is done correctly. The next document is 004. This is on the landscape, because we are acknowledging that there is important work done in the industry to support and to enable the end-to-end service management. So we want to leverage that work. So we are doing a survey to understand what is available in the industry and how it is relevant and what we could consider to leverage. This includes activities that are done in SDOs, specification groups, and also open source projects. Another document is the means of automation. We will learn about this later from Andreas, which is the rapporteur of this document, again, key contributor. And again, this is about understanding what means are available or under research or may come later to enable the automation for different aspects, how to automate different aspects. Again, the architecture must enable this means. And then we have another document that was published, this proof of concept, because we want to demonstrate the viability of the technology. So we want to see as soon as possible POCs which support this automation, but we also want to learn from these POCs. So we want to see the POCs and to identify gaps that need to be solved and to feed this information into the work that we are doing. And that's the reason that we decided to work on the POC framework on POC in a very, very early stage of the work in order to work in close iteration with a demonstration that we have. We already have one approved POC that it was presented in the last Layer 123 event in The Hague, and we have now another one that is going to be approved very soon, which is pushed by Telstra as the lead for this POC. We'll talk about POC in a few minutes. Another document is 007. This is the terminology document. We want to ensure that we use a consistent set of terms and definitions across all the documents that we are working. So this document actually centralized all these terms. And the last document is the document that was approved earlier this year. And per the NOC, we have a NOC which advice to the group. And per the NOC advice, we will work on the end-to-end, the cross-domain service orchestration and automation. We actually acknowledge that the domain levels, and we will talk about this, are already having mature solutions in different organizations, and what is missing is really the end-to-end and really to bring this all together, cross-domain coordination. So 008 will go to stage 2 and define that. Now, usually, specifications are published and then available in ETSI for the wider audience and to the industry. In this case, we asked ETSI and we got the approval to put them in an open area, also the draft. So every draft that we produce, we put it on an open area, and the reason for that is, first of all, to let the industry know what we are doing, where we are going, how, what approach we are taking, but also to request a feedback from the industry where we can improve, what is missing, any feedback that can help us to do the specification better. So this is the link. Here is the link to the open area. So a little bit about the architecture, and I will not deep dive into that because Uwe will make that, but just a little bit about the principles of the architecture, and you will hear it again from the expert. So the architecture that we are defining is modular, flexible, scalable, and extensible service-based architecture. So rather than having monolithic system with tightly coupled functions, we actually have loosely coupled services which have confined scope and can be deployed and scaled independently. And the fact that it's modular and flexible and extensible, it's important. Why? Because as we learn more from real deployment, because automation will not come in one day, there are still many things that need to be learned and understood until we will get there. We can talk about the challenges, but as we go and learn more and more, we will be able to enhance and extend the architecture in a way which will be backward compatible with what we have done. And also, being modular and extensible allows us to nicely integrate different solutions and different approaches that are provided by the different organizations and different open source projects. Another principle that we highlight here is the separation of concern. So we have the end-to-end service management domain, and we have the management domains, which actually touch the resources and services that are based on these resources. And the idea of this separation is to simplify the process end-to-end and hide the complexity of each domain from other domains and from the end-to-end service management. What is the domain? It can be very flexible definition. It can be delineated by technological or administrative boundaries, but it's open to every idea about what a domain can be. So the domain exposes services, and these services may be consumed by authorized elements, entities in other domains, or by the end-to-end service management, or even directly by the digital storefront, if we consider the use case, for example, that John talked this morning about network as a service. So I will not get into the details. I just want to highlight that in addition to that, all the services are grouped logically to show that we enable the closed loop. So we have from the orchestration, control, data collection, analytic, and intelligent. We can have multiple closed loop in the architecture, and we need to ensure that all of these are coordinated and consistently operated. And another aspect that I want to mention is the data services. The idea is to decouple the data from the application, which allows us to have fast access to the data, and this is key for automation. It's key for analytic function, and it's key for intelligence. So this allows fast access to consistent data. We all support open interfaces, model-driven service and resource abstraction. We are supporting intent-based services, interfaces, and we designed the architecture for failure. But again, more details, more deep dive will become soon by Uwe. A little bit about proof of concept. I mentioned that before. So proof of concept is actually intended to demonstrate the viability of the technology, and it's also used to teach us, to educate us about areas that we could do better, that needs to be addressed, that there are some gaps or whatever. So we feed back the information into the specification work. I just want to mention that POC is a multi-party project. It can have network and service providers involved, suppliers, universities, research centers, open source projects, integrators. Every entity can be part of the project. Now, the only restriction that we have is that the main point of contact for the POC is a ZSM member or participant. Except for that, all the other parties may not be even, probably better that there will be ZSM members, but it's not mandatory. And this is important because we really want to learn what is available in the industry in the context of automation and learn from that. The topic that we are trying to address by the different POCs can be found in this link. And here is a link to the first POC proposal that was demonstrated in The Hague. What are the working principles that we have? So first of all, I mentioned that before. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're going to leverage synergies and to leverage available specification and solutions whenever is appropriate to do that. So this is something that we are learning and we are analyzing, and we want also to work in close collaboration with the other key organizations in order to ensure that. And we also take input from implementations and open source projects in order to enhance and do our specifications better. And as I mentioned before, all of our deliverables, including the draft specifications, are available publicly for the industry. So what next? As mentioned, we are very close to stabilize the architecture and hopefully to publish it and to start working on the end-to-end solution for service orchestration, operation, and automation across multiple domains. And we will work on that. We will conduct gap analysis to see what we can leverage from available work that is being done in the industry, and we will try to leverage that as much as possible if we identify some gaps. So if the gap will be in the responsibility and the ownership of another organization, we will encourage this organization and work together with it in order to fill the gap. But if the gaps cannot be filled somewhere else, so ZSM will fill the gaps. As I mentioned before, harmonization and cooperation across the industry, this is key. And this is one of the principles that we have from first day in ZSM, to work together with the other industry organizations. So we want to promote the adoption and alignment with the architecture as a common architectural framework that other solutions will fit into in order to provide the end-to-end solution and to achieve this automation end-to-end. And that's why we want to have this open dialogue. Just to illustrate that, what we have done, we are looking at industry and business requirements. We define the end-to-end architectural framework. We work very close with open source projects to see how their implementation can be integrated into the framework, and also with other specification groups to see how they complement the work that is being done and to ensure that there is a good alignment and synergy here. So for example, if you take SA5, they provide the management and automation for the run and for the core. So we actually fit that nicely into the management domain that we mentioned. ITF would be the transport. MEF can provide some orchestration APIs that we can leverage later on. TMF provides some other APIs also to the business level. Or not maybe perceived, maybe, again, I don't want to say anything in the details, but maybe providing some solution in the context of a domain, or maybe the end-to-end, or we can take even some of the components of ONAP and use them for implementing the orchestrator or the controller or the data collector. So there are many options, and we need to work together with ONAP to see how this can be done. OSM may be perceived as a domain management. What ORAN is doing, Open RAN, is domain management. So we have a collaboration already started with some organizations. Next week in the ONS meeting, before the ONS meeting, there will be a meeting between ONAP and ZSM, and hopefully we will be able to agree on the synergy, to agree on areas for collaboration, and come with a joint message about the complementary nature of these organizations. Additional information about what we are doing you can find in the term of reference of the ISG. We have a technology page which provides more extended and more technological information. Oops. There are some blogs, so I'm trying to summarize the process, the proceedings and the developments that we are doing during the work, during the time. So for example, you can find the last blog, it's actually an article that I submitted. It was a summary of the whole work that we achieved during 2018. We had a summary from the last ZSM forum in the Hague meeting about learnings from the panel that we used to have there. So please read that and also contribute. You can ask us to submit some blogs in this page. We created also some FNQ, probably that will be useful. You can see the list of members. And there is also a very important white paper that was published, submitted by the operators that provide different perspective for the automation that we also consider in our work. So just to conclude, automation is a journey. It will not happen in one day, right? So I wouldn't like to say how long it will take until we will have end-to-end full automation, but it's a definitely exciting journey, and we just embarked it. And we believe that this will help operators to meet the user expectation for service agility and create new business opportunities. What we try to do is really to focus and to work on the architectural framework and fill the gaps that are available to enable that. And one important aspect is that one of the good things about ISG, and we're talking a lot about agility, so ISG is one of the agility efforts that ETSI actually provides to the industry. So it's very, very easy to join. Definitely, if you're an ETSI member, it's very easy to join. You just need to sign the membership agreement and join us, but you can join also if you are not ETSI member. So you can join as a participant and help us to work and help us to develop the effort. So this is my presentation. I'm a little bit ahead by 2 minutes. So if there is any question or any comment, I'm very much happy to take it. Okay, so let's continue. So by this, I'm actually honored to invite Fanny Weaver from Sprint. She's a technology strategist in Sprint, and she's a key contributor and player in ZSM, providing very, very important perspectives of an operator. So Fanny, please come and present the scenarios and the requirements that we have driven from these scenarios.